Christ's Heart Church UK. And you know, we've come a long way in 2 years. So we're just going to spend a few minutes having a little look back. What has happened in the last 2 years? First, and I'd say most importantly, we have got here an amazing group of people. Every single one of you. The church has been characterised right from the beginning by unity and by love for each other. And we are so grateful to God for every one of you who are here today and who are part of this with us. We've also had some incredibly powerful times of prayer over the last 2 years. We've had our Fuel the Fire meetings, prayer meetings. There's been pre-service prayer, midweek prayer meetings, men's prayer. We had a week of prayer meetings every night leading up to Easter 2022. Don't give me a wave if you remember that. There were some powerful prayer meetings that week. The same year we had a month of prayer and fasting. We've done 24-hour prayer. Remember that one? Being awake through the night, praying, taking it in turns. And then a couple of weeks ago, we had our first worship and prayer service here. So, you know, we are a church that prays. Worship, I'm sure you'll agree, and Keith often says, we have got a wonderful worship team here. And the growth has been amazing. I don't know if many of you would remember, but the very first Sunday we started Christ's Heart, the worship team was Keith on the guitar, me singing, and then Joshua on the keyboard, who we borrowed from another church who joined us for a couple of months. And that was it, 3 of us. And look at where we are now. We are so grateful to God. We've been blessed with anointed teaching from the Word, and everything we do in this church is based on the Word of God, on the Bible. Every Sunday, midweek meetings. In our first year and a half or so, we had online discipleship school on Zoom. If you remember that, those of you who were part of it. We looked at topics such as faith foundations, Christ's heart values, prayer ministry training. And then more recently, we've started our Digging Deeper Bible study here, which is going incredibly well and growing every week. Give me a wave if you were here last week. It was brilliant. And the teaching that we've had has included visiting speakers, obviously Pastor Michael, we're getting to know very well. Pastor Abby spoke at our first anniversary. We had Reverend Mike Royal, who was the Churches Together national leader. He came and spoke for us. Wayne O'Leary from the Slavic Gospel Association, and more, that people, anointed ministers who've come and spoken to us. In addition, our discipleship college, Christ's Heart Discipleship College, started September 2022, and it was a proud day when we graduated the charter class in July of this year, July 2023. And this academic year, we're now running first and second year here in the rooms at Swan Street. And the list goes on. Women's ministry. Let's have a cheer, women. Woo! We've got our Women of Value, which has been going for quite a while now, learning, growing together, supporting each other as women. And hot off the press, there's going to be a conference coming up early next year. So that's something to get ready for, women. We've also had some amazing times of fellowship, agape meals, and believe me, we've got a treat of one of those upstairs after the service today. We do meals really well here.
Come on.
We've had Christmas celebrations at our house. There was Josiah's baby shower and his first birthday party that we celebrated together. We've had walks, we've had meals out, even a theatre trip. So we've had really good times of fellowship together. And then last but not least, outreach. The first and foremost thing being the Little Hearts Mother and Toddlers group, which will be relaunching hopefully fairly soon here. We've done our community carol services. We were part of Wordsley Community Fair. And then obviously there's been the leaflet drops, the prayer walks. And you know, all of these things have been seeds that have been sown over the last 2 years. We want to thank God for our covering of Christ's Heart Ministries Uganda, of Bishop Isaiah and Pastor Deborah Mbuga, and we're going to hear from them in a few minutes. Keith and myself have a close relationship with them. We appreciate their support, the accountability they provide for us, and the prayer cover that we get from the whole church. Well, the church is, because there's many of them in Uganda. They visited here twice, and we've also ministered in Uganda. So we thank God for their input into our lives personally and into the church. But to bring us up to the present day, the most exciting event of the last 2 years has definitely been moving here and blending with the wonderful people here at the Mission Hall in Swan Street. Now, I don't know if you remember this, Pastor Michael, but over a year ago, Sunday the 29th of May 2022, Pastor Michael spoke at church in the Richardson Hall, and he said, this place, talking about the Richardson Hall, is too small for what's about to happen in this church. And who would have thought that just over 1 year later, we'd be starting preparations for our move here. Our first Sunday here was the 6th of August, just 2 months ago. We had 91 people here that Sunday. We were joined by Pastor Michael and his church. And I've got written in my diary, I keep a diary of everything that goes on. There was a wonderful atmosphere of excitement and expectation that Sunday. And I'm sure you'd agree with me, from there, it's just continued to get better as we move forwards together as one church. We felt unity right from the start, and we're very excited for the future, but more of that in a minute. Because the second thing that we're celebrating today is the 125th anniversary of the People's Mission Hall, which is a huge achievement. And we want to thank God for the faithfulness of the people over the last 125 years who have worked, prayed, and sown their lives into the church here. I want to start by appreciating and honouring the trustees who have faithfully held the fort here and who've stewarded the church and building for many years. Brian, Muriel, Brenda, Doreen, Trevor and Carol. We're here today because of their faithfulness, their perseverance and their hard work, and also their trust in us. We are so grateful to God and to you. Now, sadly, Trevor and Carol aren't able to be with us today. They're on their way back from Gran Canaria as I speak. But I would like to invite the other four to come forward. Brenda, Doreen, Brian and Muriel, if you could just come and join me for a second, please.
Come on, ladies.
Now, I know they would not want this to happen, but we have got 4 incredible people standing in front of us today. Faithful people who have stewarded and kept this church for years and years and years. And we just want to say thank you. We're grateful to God. We're grateful to you. Girls, thank you. And just personally, for myself and Keith, thank you so much.
Can we just thank you? No, we'd like to thank you, please, as well, because we all said from the beginning you could just have been coincident with the way it went right through Ted's funeral, really.
Yes.
And we do hope and pray that it will be. I'm sure it will. Yes. We've all got to work together. And, yes. Thank you. Pray for us.
You know what English people don't do very well, and this is something that other cultures do well, and it's something that English folk need to learn from other cultures. We don't honour people properly. It's not something we can criticise and condemn people and be sarcastic to them very easily. That's something we find easy to do. But in terms of honouring people, it's something we don't do very often. That is why we wanted to bring them at the front. And I know they're like, we don't have to, we don't have to. Of course we don't have to. But we wanted to. Because we wanted to honour the people, because without these people, we wouldn't be here. So, you know, again, just to echo what Jenny said, thanks ladies. Thank you, Brian. For those who don't know, Brian was my Sunday school teacher when I was 10 years of age. So the input that I received from these people is more than you'd ever know. And now we've come full circle back here 40 years later to be back here. So, guys, thank you very much.
Right, so I'm getting all emotional. A few weeks ago, Muriel gave us this booklet, which is a short history of the People's Mission Hall, and it was written for the centenary celebrations, which were back in 1998. And Chris has also given us some local history books as well. And as I read this that Sunday evening, I got so excited. I think I've mentioned it to a few of you. I started reading it out to Keith, and we ended up getting excited together. Because this place has such a rich history, and what God has done here over the years is amazing. So I just want to take a couple of minutes now to share a few highlights from the early years of the church. So, just 100 years ago, well, that's now 125 years ago, a small group of believers who previously attended the Messiah Baptist Church on Cinderbank, Netherton, rented a room in the local council school for their Sunday gospel meetings and met in the homes of believers during the week. So that was the beginning. They set about finding more suitable accommodation and in August 1898 rented a field in Swan Street for a period of 10 years. Building work was started immediately and the mission hall was completed in time for the official opening on the 28th of September, just 42 days later. So that was the original tin mission hall that was here. Well, it wasn't this, it was just next door, wasn't it, where the house is next door. And an account from a member at the time says, after having a successful day on the Sunday, we had a very enjoyable tea on the Monday, at which about 200 sat down to tea. Thus, we commenced as a united body with a membership of 26. So that was the first membership. On the following Sunday, the 5th of October, a Sunday school was started, wait for it, with a staff of 12 and about 100 pupils. Wow. Early accounts tell us our work at first was hard and difficult, but by prayer, patience and perseverance, we maintained our position and made steady progress. The accounts always show that finance presented a real problem in those early days, but that, through the unity of purpose and the shared vision of those pioneers, God always provided. At this time, a really valuable work was undertaken in Windmill End, starting with open air and cottage meetings. And it's said about those open air meetings, the Holy Spirit did a mighty work of grace in the hearts and lives of some of the toughest of men and women. By 1909, there were 80 permanent members, with substantially larger congregations through the intervening years, and it became evident that the original building was neither large enough nor likely to be a permanent structure, so plans were laid for the purchase of land for the building of the current main church building. The official stone-laying ceremony took place on the 3rd of July 1933, with completion of the building for the official opening on Saturday the 10th of February 1934. So that's when this building, this main church building, was opened. The Sunday school had grown so that at one time it served up to 400 children. That's here. 400 children with 30 teachers. With the existing classes of the Sunday school using the old tin mission hall that was still next door, the new class had to use the choir vestry. So the decision was taken in 1939 to commence a new 5-year plan to raise funds for a further extension. The war interrupted these plans, but the church carried on. Here's a report. Children and teachers were requested on September the 19th, 1939, to bring along their gas masks to all meetings. In the same year, the Christmas party began at 2:00 p.m. so that everyone was home before blackouts. So it continued through the war. Meanwhile, the work of the fellowship continued, with men and ladies enjoying separate weekly events, as well as the joint prayer and gospel services. There was evidently a ladies' work well underway at the time of the Golden Jubilee in 1948, as well as a strong tradition of a church choir. The Jubilee booklet records that early members of the church were passionately fond of the music of Zion and maintained for many years a reputation for having a choir which was inferior to none in the district. In fact, I wasn't going to tell you this little story, but I will. The booklet goes on to record how a shield was put up for competition between local choirs, but that Swan Street won it so often that eventually the competition lapsed and the shield was used for something else. It was also in this year, 1948, that the Men's Fellowship was formed, followed shortly after in 1950 by the formation of a male voice gospel choir. And this male voice gospel choir travelled around the country, witnessing in song to the saving power of Jesus. Sunday school numbers were a little lower at the time of the Golden Jubilee, with just 290 students and 23 staff. It was then that building work began on the extension, which culminated in the opening of the Upper Sunday School Hall on the 6th of October 1951. Now I'm coming up to some of Keith's memories now as well. The Sunday school, well, not quite yet, so it's not quite as old. The Sunday school was to play a significant role in the 1950s and 1960s as Swan Street pupils joined with other members of the Netherton Sunday School Union in processions of witness and massed open-air evangelism services in Netherton Park. Now this next bit is something I've heard from Keith. It's an abiding memory that your parents and relatives came early for Sunday school anniversary services, or else they stood in the porch or listened in through the windows if they failed to get one of the extra seats that had been placed in the aisles. Deb's nodding. Keith, yeah, can remember those days. I tell you, it's coming again. Many thousands of boys and girls passed through the Sunday school, with some going on to service and witness in all parts of the world, while others remained serving the Lord on the home mission field. And I just want to finish with a quote honouring those early members. There's not space to record names, but there are many whose zeal and willingness, along with their consistency, have been witness to their faith. It's amazing, isn't it? I tell you, we are honoured to be following on from such an amazing history. And this morning, we remember the past and we're grateful for all that God has done. Looking back stirs our faith. I tell you, I have been so excited ever since reading that. There's been such an excitement in me because it gives us an awareness of God's plan and purpose for this place and the significant role that it holds in the community. If all of these things have happened over here over the years, then they can happen again in our time. A verse that we've read a few times at Christ's Heart, Esther 4:14, for such a time as this. All of us have a part to play. God has called every one of us here, Sheila prayed it at the start this morning, for such a time as this to fulfil his purposes. So we don't just look back. Today is very much also about looking forwards. Over the last 2 years, God's given us many words and promises of what he wants to do here. When we started here on the 6th of August, Keith said, "This is not a museum, but a masterpiece for God's glory. We remember the past, but we don't stay living in it. It's a new season." When we launched Christ's Heart on the 3rd of October, Keith's message was, "Prepare for my glory." And then we've often talked about the vision. Keith's not one to have pictures and visions of things, but on Sunday the 10th of October back in 2021, he shared the picture God gave him of big waves of his glory coming, of God's glory, waves of healing, waves of restoration and salvation. And the waves weren't far away in the distance, they were close to the shore. Pastor Michael, on Sunday the 29th of May last year, there's going to be great signs and wonders of healing in this house. They will come in wheelchairs and leave healed. They will come broken and leave in joy. They will come in hurt and leave in freedom. And then this year, just after Keith was handed the keys, a powerful word from a pastor friend, Nobbin. He said, "I see that as you move in, the first thing you're going to notice and see is that there's a fresh new move of God that takes place." You know, we are expecting to see the glory of God and a revival that will impact this area once again, this region and this country. And I just want to say here today, this church is not dead. It is very much alive and full of purpose. Amen? Amen. Amen.